Good morning, Tuvalu, and welcome to Star Trek. Oh, I didn't think about how I was going to say this. Star Trek Season 1, Episode 3, Where No Man Has Gone Before. Episode 3, because it is production order, Episode 1, because we're not savages. We live in a society, and TOS gets watching production order. I want to say right now, as I get set up some things. Whoops. Oh, actually, you can't see that. Hang on. Yes. If you're not aware, Star Trek TOS set up. Star Trek TOS. Well, first off, I'll say this, if you're watching on Paramount Plus, is actually Episode 4. Because they list the cage as Episode 1, because we just can't have TOS be ordered in a consistent way. Yes, let me start this recording. If you're not aware, Star Trek the original series was filmed in a different order to how it aired. Nowadays, that is pretty common. That's nothing unusual. But back in the 60s, canon wasn't really a concept. It's certainly not how we understand it now. So they were still figuring out a lot about the show as they made it. So people would change positions, uniform colors. I don't think they really changed names. Kirk actually did. But basically, when they were producing the show, all that kind of changed in order, right? It's a lot of changes in the first, few episodes. But it was all in order from production standpoint. This episode, you're in a blue shirt and you're steering the ship. Next episode, you're in a red shirt and you're doing the con or whatever, the communications. But if you watch that in the order they aired, it's jumbled because you're flipping randomly between points of developing the series. And also, even though TOS isn't really special effects heavy, it took a long time to do what they do in the 60s. For the time, it was pretty, some of the episodes are pretty heavy. Balance of Terror is the 8th episode produced. I think it's one of the last. It's 20-something in terms of when it was aired. So you backload your special effects heavy episodes. What this means is if you watch TOS in the order it was produced rather than the order it was aired, it's generally a more consistent, early on, less jarring, and just generally more balanced viewing experience. So don't worry, and of course apparently for Season 1, because they count the cage on Paramount Plus is Episode 1, I will put the episode number on these videos and stuff. So this is Episode 3. I'll put the production order, because it's Production 1. Memory Alpha does production order. You can Google this, it's in the title what the episode is. And I guess on Paramount Plus, you're just gonna have to add 1 to whatever number I say. Which is fascinating. Oh yeah. I literally moved that so I could open the tabs without showing them. I really need to move what part of the screen I'm capturing. Alex is not here today, unfortunately. Oh, whoops. I just killed our engine hum. That's okay. I guess we don't need it. Alex is not here today, unfortunately. We have the equipment for it, but they are sick. So they're not really up for it today, which is unfortunate. I was looking forward to having them. People seem to like them. They'll probably pop down in a bit to explain it. I think they're making lunch now. But it's just me, and then next week we'll go and do Picard reviews rather than watch-alongs for Season 3. So with that out of the way, yes, Where No Man Has Gone Before. I remember the plot. It's Lower Decks' favorite episode, apparently. It's the one with Gary Mitchell. And it's early TOS. There's some weird things. But I guess we'll get into it as we go on. I think you've had plenty of time to prepare. So how we're going to do this, I don't know. I really need to upload these as trimmed versions for YouTube. But how we're gonna do this is you get your own copy of the episode, Star Trek Where No Man Has Gone Before, episode 4 on Paramount Plus. Usually it's episode 3, but it's production order number 1, so that's where we're starting. We're going to do a countdown, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. On go, we're all going to hit play, and then it'll be my audio track, so we'll all be in sync. I'm watching the remastered version. You can watch the original. The link in the description should be the remastered version on Paramount Plus. They're the same lengths, the same everything, but the special effects obviously are different. So if I make a remark on special effects and you're watching the original, we're going to be looking at different things. And I think in this episode, that is definitely going to come up. As much as I said about backloading CGI episodes, they probably did want to go out on their pilot. So, without further ado... oh no, there's one more thing. There's a new video that I'm in, but not on N Squared. I posted about it in the community tab on my channel, if you want to check it out. I forgot to prepare the link. But I was recently asked by... God, I should have done this before the intro. By the YouTube channel Best of Trek, Worst of Trek, to celebrate their 1,000 subscriber milestone. Is sort of a QA style thing. Trek Culture recently hit a big milestone, like 250,000, I think, subscribers. And so they did the same set of questions for smaller YouTubers. And so yes, you can go there and hear some of my opinions and stuff. It's good. I liked it. It turned out well, but yes, go and check that out. Not now. I'll try and remember after the live stream to bring that up, but I did want to mention it. So now, without further ado, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. And I did hit play. There we go. The same nebula is... Oh, it just froze. Okay. We're gonna stop that. Why did I freeze? Everyone reset. I think VLC Media Player just crashed. That was weird. Okay, slight intermission. Get me the episode open again. Okay, we're gonna do it again with the new episode. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. I clicked play. 2, 3. There we go. Look on the bright side. That happened in the first 3 seconds. Look at the old Enterprise model. Nice zoom. So I love TOS. Kirk's logs are just like madness. Like how poetic and just grandiose his logs are. I love them. Yeah, and somehow Strange New World Spock ends up in this scene. One of my ancestors. I can't remember which. I think it was my dad. Well, yeah, so another weird thing with canon, like, the speed the Enterprise can go at, and the distance to the center of the to the edge of the galaxy. If you go up and down, because the galaxy's quite thin, it's about... actually, Earth is kind of in the middle of that up and down bit of the galaxy. So, 5-year mission is what they have. And technically, it's impossible for this to be at the start. And it's also just impossible for them to get here. But if they left Earth and literally beelined for 2.5 years to get to the edge of the galaxy, they could do it and then beeline back and technically do it in 5 years. Because I think it's like 50 light years max. Is that right? It might be... No, it's probably 500. I think the galaxy's 1,000 light years tall. So it doesn't really work, but I do like that technically they could do it if their mission is a beeline back and forth. Welcome, Alex. I told them you were sick.
Yeah, I'm sick, or else I'd be interjecting and listening along with.
Yes.
You guys will just have to wait till next time.
God knows when that'll be. Prodigy Season 2 was confirmed for this year, by the way. I read that somewhere. Spotted official somewhere, but
on William Shatner.
Yeah, that's good.
Also starring Nina Nimar as
They don't have what I used to refer to as the screaming lady in the early seasons. You know the lady? Oh, yeah, the screaming lady. That's what I called her as a kid. Ooh, we'll have to see as well, is this Enterprise lit sensibly? Like, because we noticed in the cage it didn't have all the weird purple and green lights. I don't know if we'll get into it this episode, but Spock is a character, is horrific at logic. I think he's consistently the worst demonstration of logical deduction I've ever seen, because of who written him, of course. So he's always been a fascinating character, no pun intended, of like, yeah, he's the logical Vulcan, we know this about Spock, but in practice, he's unbelievably poor at logic. Galileo 7 is a good example. My uncle sponsored a video for me to make that once. Spock is awful at logic, but yeah. Hey, comment. Is that Sulu in blue? Yes. Welcome to the original series. I always, when I'm watching the series, I go through TOS, and it's like, man, I can't wait for TNG, where, like, all this sexism stuff disappears, and then you get to TNG, and you're like, oh yeah, it takes a season or two to really feel different from TOS. TOS makes me want to just watch and be quiet, like, way more than... I don't know what it is about it, but I love this kind of show. And yeah, I always find it funny that the first episode of Star Trek is about ESP. It is weird as well from like a in-universe perspective now, where we know that is not a fact, but we also know telepathy does exist in the Star Trek universe. And humans, yeah, like, don't really have any telepathic abilities. I can't remember if there's, like... But, like, maybe there are random people born who do have a bit more, just because it's a thing that can happen in this universe. I like these 4 members as well, who just have to stand there for this whole shot. It's like, man, is this the show I've really signed up for? Hey, Kirk is a lieutenant in this episode. The little things on his arm. My character in the thumbnail's got the captain ranks. It's got an extra squiggly. Actually, they're both squiggly. Assuming Alex drew that correctly. The captain rank. But Kirk is, I think, a lieutenant. Pike was an ensign in the cage. That woman doesn't even have a rank. Maybe yeomans don't, but... And here's where those of you watching the original cut are going to see something different. Sensor beam, God. It is a different world, TOS. I always say, if you're watching the franchise, it's actually probably better to have a gap between the original series and the next generation, because remembering TOS, it works, you know. The modern stuff have maybe muddied the timelines a bit around this era with Discovery, but remembering Star Trek, yeah, it fits, classic-wise. Watching it, it's a whole new world. Like, compared to Next Generation through Enterprise. One thing I wish these remasters would do is keep the practical models. I know in, like, the original series, it was awful. Like... It was chopping out. It was horrific green screen. It was bad, but it's still nice. Like, the CGI models just look CG. Do I have to put an epilepsy warning for these episodes that I'm not streaming? The live stream does not have an epilepsy warning, but, like, the entirety of the original series should. Hopefully Paramount Plus didn't have one, actually, because I didn't account for that. I checked that the cage synced up. I did not check that this episode synced with Paramount Plus. Oh, the Enterprise has the little pointy bits. On the nipples, I guess. The turbos. What are they? The Bassard collectors. There we go. Something interesting, because that's a CGI model of the Enterprise. It was made from scratch for the remaster. But the remaster team on this did a great job in that they had some instances. A later one in this episode is Kirk's grave is going to say James R. Kirk, even though his middle name is Tiberius. And they debated fixing that in the remaster, like making the gravestone say T so it's accurate. But they didn't, like, they decided not to because, in part, the effort it would take, but also, it's just, that's not how the show was, and they kind of wanted to keep that historical, like, there's some of the enjoyment, and like, oh look, they didn't know how it worked yet, they didn't know all the Star Trek rules, and these little points on the Enterprise, I think... There's other bits about that don't look right. I'd have to get my model to compare. But it's, it had a different model in the cage that was used in some of the early episodes, and that includes little pointy bits on the Bassard collectors. Better than average, superior, high ESP. You actually get a lot just from that underlining they do in the documents. I love shows like this. It's about the writing, and I guess that's directing. My point is, it's not the special effects. I mean, they had some for going through the barrier because you needed to depict that, but it's very minor. Like, that's not the focus. It's just like, yeah, we need to show them going through the barrier, and we can't do that practically. Okay, maybe that is a bit excessive even for Star Trek. Kess did it. Start fires simultaneously. Kess isn't human. I mean, Deep Space Nine has Bashir quote the humans use 10% of their brain thing. That's just not true. The thing about 10% of the brain is it's so obvious to disprove, because if it was true, you could remove 90% of the brain and be completely unaffected, and you can't do that. I believe it's true that usually, or maybe at a max, I don't remember which, humans use 10% of their brain actively at one time, I think is where that comes from. But yeah, you use the whole thing. It's very important. These contacts as well are quite interesting. That's how they do the eyes. It's contacts that have like tinfoil in the middle. I believe it's dual layered contacts, and that's how they get the shine. I probably should have said that at the end, because knowing that can make the episode a lot harder to watch. But it's a really good effect. Well, no, that's the thing. Like, Kirk taught at the academy? But, a stack of book with legs. Like, Kirk, well, I'm listening and talking. I need to do one or the other. Kirk's reputation in pop culture is just so not who Kirk is. It's like J.J. Abrams Kirk, sure, but the stack of books with legs isn't that far off for how Kirk actually is, you know? Kirk not once has sex with a green woman until 2009. Okay, I will find bones. Is this better? Oh man, there's some echo in this hospital, huh? Conditional echo. Is it weird that you can spy on those computers from the bridge? Probably should have done that with Khan. Oh, wait. Was there a remote in 1969? Every time I watch TOS, it's one of these things I have to think about. Like, the sliding doors didn't exist yet. What's it called? When was the not sliding door, TV remote? 56. Wait. So yeah, when did it become popular? 1960? Okay, maybe they did have... It was, like, at least a technology. It wasn't a sci-fi thing. God, this is already having a bunch of 60s scenes, and we're not even on Mud's women yet. He could play music with that thing, you know? Get like the beeps and the boops. High comment. Bleh. What are these? Blood, cell rate. Cell rate? Okay, lungs is an odd measurement, you know, but you can kind of get what it's doing. Cell rate? Cell division rate? Cell metabolism? Cell death? Cell rate? What does that even mean? 22 seconds? No, he wasn't. Look, TOS is slow, but it's not that slow. One of my favorite instances of 60s television. You know, it's slow. There's a lot of, like, silent bits. It's slow. People know this. In Doctor Who, like 1964, there's an episode where some Daleks are, you know, they've got a plan or whatever. I don't remember what it is. And there's 3 Daleks standing around a monitor. And one of them goes like, "Prepare to launch the device." And then it sits there just staring at these 3 Daleks for a solid, like, 10 seconds or something. And then the same Dalek goes, "Launch the device." So it's the joke of, like, prepare. It's like, what there for to prepare? But no, these Daleks legitimately, like, mentally prepared for pressing this button. That we had to watch them sit there and just hype up, get ready. If I remember correctly, it's not even a particularly padded episode. It's the Dalek invasion of Earth, if you're curious. But I love that scene. I could not hear that line whatsoever. I should have, I'm gonna... No, I don't. I should have ripped subtitles for Star Trek. I didn't. I think that color of uniform, the, like, brown, doesn't work because it's a hair color. And it really looks weird. You have people like this, who are white guys with blonde hair in the brown uniform. It's just, it's one color. It doesn't work. You really need the bright primary colors for, for a show like this. It's a science uniform as well. It's weird that they had the patches and the different colored uniforms, and clearly the patches meant something. They made different ones, but they're kind of randomly scattered. Like, she's an operations engineering-y one. How the hell did you not realize that? Look at that point. He looked at that thing and was like, that's fine. Oh god. And then let's talk, okay, Spock may be awful at logic, but let's talk about all these other people who are like the most emotional unbreaking. People complain that modern Star Trek is not professional enough, and I agree by and large. But I am also going to point to TOS and say that these people, it's not just Star Trek. Whenever you have a character like that who's more, I don't even know what to call it, bigger picture, down to business, it's a crisis and we don't have time to mourn. Doctor Who does this a lot. Like, people have these weird outbursts that just never seem to make sense to me and just seem crazy. Like, maybe it's because I am more the Spock type of person, but it's like, he's not dead yet. He's changing, sure, but he hasn't done anything dangerous. He hasn't seemed to be changing his personality much. He's just getting more abilities. Like, yes, eventually they can become concerning. They can become... Exactly. Like, see? Everyone's like, oh, I remember the eugenics wars. You don't, but... Like, she's got a point. Mr. Sulu, what's a penny? Assumption. You assume there's no upper limit on his abilities. Spock. I mean, it's a risk, yes, but, you know, you'd think someone like Spock would point out the assumption that there's no upper cap on his limits. Why white mice? I like the use of, light days, though. You only ever hear light years, but... Why? Like... It's scary, sure, being that powerless compared to someone else, but... Like, yeah, that's the other point. I know Spock is right, but I know Spock is right because I've seen the future. Like, it's probably the safest option, assuming you don't care about the lives of Gary, but, so yeah, I mean, I guess it's in character then, but it's still a bit harsh. This is why I like Spock. This is why Strange New Worlds' Spock doesn't work for me, because Spock had this journey from where he is right now all the way through, you know, till his last appearance, of that balance between the logic and emotion, the, you know, growing as a person, his friendship with Kirk and Bones, and Strange New Worlds and Discovery put him before, like, they put him near the end of, like, TOS or something, So he has to, like, completely regress to the point of not even understanding the concept of irritation from, like, where he is in those shows. That's really well done as well. I don't even... Where are the strings? How did they do that? Did they remaster the strings out? Because that doesn't seem like something they do. Like, that's pretty smooth as movement as well. I love watching old shows. You don't do that with CG. If you see really great CG, you're not going to know it's CG, but you're also going to be like, yeah, that's good CG. When you see that, I want to know how they did it, you know? Even if I'm like, it's probably a string. It's kind of like a magician's act, I guess, you know? It's probably a string, but I don't know it's a string. It's like, dang it, Spock. Kirk let him wear a gun into this as well, which is kind of... It's like, Spock, I knew there was a reason you asked for that gun. I'll have to look in this more when Carol gets infected. That's her name, right? Where it's also very much Gene Roddenberry. That when he gets these godlike abilities, he becomes evil, corrupt. The sort of absolute power corrupts absolutely kind of thing. But I much prefer something like Riker, where he got the abilities of a Q, and he was still himself. His questions were like, I can do more, you know, it's the good he could do with the power. And I really don't like a lot of how that episode is handled. But, you know, Riker doesn't suddenly become a maniac god. He's still very much Riker. Yeah, he becomes a bit more pompous, like more arrogant, but he's not like... I could be a god, use a world to my desires. And maybe there's something in the galactic barrier. We know nothing about it in Alpha Canon. Like, what it is, who put it there. But, you know, there could be something built into it that, like, it makes you crazy and insane. So, you can't leave the galaxy. Like, that would make sense. If you leave the galaxy, you'll destroy your own ship, kind of thing. Or likewise... if you enter the galaxy, you will destroy your own ship before getting far. That's probably what it does. No, I like that. I like that little headcanon on the galactic barrier. I'd love to explore it in Alpha Canon. I really, really would. Because it's weird. Does the Doctor have lines in this episode? I think he might have had some at the start, but... Has he? Was he? I mean, that one's a good point. I'll give him that. But, like, was he testing his abilities to take over the Enterprise? He read poetry fast. He read someone's mind without realizing it to save the ship, and he levitated a cup. he did control an Enterprise faucet, so I guess there you go. He did use his powers to, quote-unquote, take over the Enterprise. That effect is well done, too, because back in the day, you'd have to get him to stand, like, perfectly still, wouldn't you? To take those contacts out and put them back in. Could be remastered, like, but I'm pretty sure they didn't really do much with the episodes as a whole. Maybe just bring the visual quality up a bit, put them into HD. The huge deflected, like, the remastered team had to put the extra effort to make another Enterprise model for 2 or 3 episodes. Love this scene. I had a friend who loved that, where he's like, I didn't order, and then he just walks around the corner with a massive gun, resting it on his hip, and he's like, Kirk's just like, yeah, okay. He's right, but again, she feels I don't is not a good argument for why you know better than a psychologist. I feel like a psychologist who doesn't feel would be a very bad psychologist. It's a nice painting, too. Wait, are they outside the barrier right now, where this planet is? Or, because they gotta be back in. But I don't recall them going through it again. Thank you for letting me know that, Jim. Why do I recognize Kelso? Oh, is he the guy from Prodigy? Hang on, let me check this. Star Trek Kelso. Lee Kelso. It doesn't have a spoiler tag for Prodigy. Who's this Kelso, though? Oh, there's a TNG Ensign Kelso, or some Kelso, who's an engineer in an episode I recently watched with Alex. The one where Geordi's in command for the first time. Arsenal of Freedom. That's the one. Nice zipper on your uniform. It's like, now you too will not be able to see while you act. Surely they can, if it's tinfoil, like, just saying. I can't do contacts, but, like, the idea of tinfoil contacts just, oh, no. It's kind of weird when you think of it as well, that this episode, they send the ship past the galactic barrier. They make it, and then they just go home immediately. Like, you think maybe they'd explore a bit? I mean, what is there on outside the galaxy? Like, not much. Look at everything the papier-mâché touches is our kingdom. What about the painting over there? We don't go to the painting. Some of the rocks work. I think when you can see a lot of the rock, it doesn't work, though. Everything the plastic flowers touch is our kingdom. At least it's not a hand puppet. Love that hand puppet flower. If you think about it, though, it's still probably pretty hard to survive here. Like, it's impressive, but I just watched a miracle, you know. I'd be the guy in the Bible. Jesus turns like fish and bread into like a billion fish and a billion bread, and then I eat it. It's like, it's not the best fish I've ever had, you know. Yeah, it could be better. If you're really the son of God, surely you could have made a better fish. Is that the old-timey equivalent of, like, a flat earther, like, moon landing denier equivalent? Like, when superstition, it was kind of, like, official in the religious stuff and all that. You're, like, a religious denier, but not scientific. You're just, like, a different religion. I don't know. I just like that idea, you know. In the beginning, there was nothing, and God said, "Let there be light," and there was light, and it was good. And then God said, "Let there be a moon," and it was alright, you know, it could have been better. And he said, "Let there be trees," and the trees were quite, yeah, they were better, but they weren't quite as good as the light, you know. The sequels are never as good. I would love that, actually. Some sort of, like, comedy, like, pessimistic or, like, parody Bible. Like, that's just written as a comedy. That would be amazing. God made himself in his own image, but unfortunately, God couldn't find his glasses that day, and it was a poor copy. Instantly turns his back on Carol. I love how Kirk's... Oh, he was crawling through the, dirt, actually. I was gonna say his pants are dirty because of the fight scene he's about to have, but I bet it's from crawling through the dirt, you know. Willie? What frailties? Oh, those things. Here's something that's weird, right? I see this in 60s television a lot. Star Trek and Doctor Who, which is the only 60s television I see, where they both describe a humanity that is like constantly millimeters from anarchy, and where like basically every moment of every day, every human is actively trying not to murder everyone in their sight. Like, Kirk even has a big speech in a later episode about, like, you just have to make the effort to not kill today, which makes sense in the, it's a war kind of conflict, but I remember he expands on this more, and it really is like, oh, you bumped into someone at the hall. It's like, I will kill you and your family. It's like, well, it's like a savage. I'm like, is this a Cold War thing? Or like, am I somehow so fundamentally different from everyone else? Because that is literally incomprehensible to me. But every now and then I brush up against this idea in the real world. And like, it's horrifying. Like, it's terrifying getting into these things. Like, as people can't really be like this, right? It's so incomprehensible and so foreign to me, but it's everywhere in this era. And so it's like, is it a Cold War thing? Like, you're literally living where at any moment one of two people could just decide to end the world? Or is it something more? Because it goes away. After the 60s, it does kind of go away. Like, it's not in either show, but... Was it just an ideal of, like, humanity is basically still an animal, but with technology? Like, it's gotta be something of the times. Surely. I mean, just imagine 1960. You would have had World War II 20 years ago. What, 40, 50 years ago, World War I. And now America and the Soviet Union are, like, threatening to blow each other up. Like, what else would you think about the world? Here's a question. If absolute power corrupts absolutely, how come Carol is going against Gary? I don't like absolutes. There are absolutely no absolutes in the universe. It just can't happen. For example, take that sentence. But it's so Gene. It's so Gene Roddenberry. Like, there's a reason the TOS crew is constantly fighting either godlike entities or actually God. There's a reason for when TNG needed a filler in its pilot, they wrote Q. It's so Gene Roddenberry. I think the most Gene Roddenberry episode of all of Star Trek, is the one I can't pronounce, isn't it? It's the one with the devil in TAS. Where the crew of the Enterprise meet literal biblical Satan, who turns out to not be a bad guy. He's just misunderstood, and they use actual magic to save him from execution. It's the most Gene Roddenberry plot I've ever heard. God, how are we gonna do TAS on this watch-along? We'll probably do a few episodes at once. And here's another staple of Kirk getting progressively and inconsistently undressed between cuts. Oh, that was a good stunt. That man looked nothing like Kirk, but that was a good stunt. Like, the amount of force they threw Kirk's stunt double away with. Also, is Kirk's stunt double not undressed? That would be amazing if he's like, I'm not wearing that. Imagine what it's like from the transporter crew that's gonna beam him up. It's like, beam me up, and then he shows up and he's like half naked, his shirt's in tatters, and he's like, the usual captain, was it? Like, they didn't tell the transporter crew about Gary Mitchell. From their perspective, nothing is out of the ordinary until the captain beams up half naked and covered in blood. That's like a normal day for this crew. Be gasp. It's done, but I mean, how can you not listen to the credits music? It's an amazing song. See, look at, there you go, the green screened Enterprise where the bridge is gone, the entire secondary hull is gone, and the port Bassard collector is missing half of itself. It just has a little pokey out bit. This is why I watched the remastered. I also grew up with it, but I draw the line at green screen worse than I could pull off. Green screen worse than my mom can pull off. That's the line I draw.
Sorry, I just tuned in on green screen worse than green screen worse than my mom can pull off. Because that is an insult, and I love your mother. It's
not an insult. My mom would be the first to admit. I think she's already admitted she can't really do the green screen stuff because they're working on YouTube stuff.
I just love that. It's like such a well-meaning.
Well, the
insult.
thing is, I've done green screen work before. My early videos for like Thing Explorer and stuff were in front of a green screen, so I actually know more about green screen than like some random person.
Yeah.
But my mom, like, not specifically my mom, but just as a sentence, is always a great example for, like, someone, the average person who's not particularly skilled at some skilled work, which is weird, but yeah. It also helps that my mom will be the first to admit they're awful with technology. Like, they're the point as well where they go to watch a movie and, like, the Blu-ray player doesn't work, and they're like, instantly, guess I'm not watching a movie. You know, they're not gonna try and troubleshoot it at all. It's just like, guess the movie's, like, you know, it's just that the cord came loose. If you looked at the back, you'd see it. Or it's not plugged in, but you'll instantly be like, no movie time. We're done. Yes, I got that from her as well, but my baseline is way lower. You know, it was in getting my computer science degree when I eventually hit, like, core level architecture, or it's like, I don't know, HTTP, or even, like, memory allocation, like the low level stuff that's, like, foundational. That doesn't work. I'm like, well, I guess I'm not using it. Yeah, it should work, you know? I'll program the thing, but make my tools to program the thing work. But yes, here's an interesting question. It's 1969, you know, I'm very much looking forward to the moon landing. I have not seen The Cage. Would I have kept watching this show after this? Which is hard to imagine, because compared to something modern, like, let's just even say the Orville, you know, which is going to do very similar things. It wouldn't, if I'm watching this compared to, like, a modern sci-fi, like modern Doctor Who, modern, I almost said Star Trek. The better modern Star Trek is like, yeah, it's not as good. Just the pacing, and I wouldn't have been hooked enough on this episode. I think The Cage is probably better as an episode. I'd make some tweaks to Pike if I'm nitpicking, but, you know, I'm nitpicking there. This one, it's so good. As I said, I had a lot of like, oh, how'd they do that? You know, I compliment a lot of the style, the direction, the writing. I definitely have been curious. I was never a tune in every week kind of person. If this is like on Netflix, whatever, or like the first few episodes are available, I'd give it another go. Yeah, I'd give it a few goes. I would have bounced off pretty hard on a lot of the comments and words, actions towards the female cast members. But we're setting that aside because it's the year 1969. I'm very much looking forward to the moon landing, but I'm a product of my time, apparently. No, it is important to understand in a way that I cannot have firsthand experience to, that what was seen is like the progressive, the like equal rights woman is different to what it is now, or even what it is a few decades later. Like, I kind of see it as things were so bad that you couldn't even realize that your idea of perfection was still bad. Like, you couldn't realize that was unequal because it was so much more equal than what was currently there. And so it's also weird in that, like, yeah, Star Trek believes in the gender equality. Gene Roddenberry believes in it, but both also seem to actively take steps against it. Like a common anecdote is that the women are sort of enhanced a bit when they're on screen. There's a bit of a glow around them, I think it is. I can't remember exactly what they do. And I think that was a Gene Roddenberry decision, but like, that's why are you treating him differently? Why are you doing these things? You have what I like to call pretty woman music, which is very good for someone who is face blind and has 60 years of changing standards of beauty between them, where I think it's called Rose. It's really hard to Google. There's a music cue that plays whenever like the gorgeous woman walks on screen, and everyone kind of pauses and stares at her to admire how like gorgeous this person is, and Kirk probably falls in love with her later in the episode. But for me, I'm always like, why are we just sitting around staring at this person? Oh, they're playing the pretty woman music. This is a drop dead gorgeous girl, and like I have to take the step out to actually look at the person aesthetically, and it's like, why are we staring at this person? Oh yeah, they're a pretty woman. Okay. But yeah, I mean, it's different going back to TOS, and I mean that less in how it was made, even though it is different, unquestionably, but more in the universe is different. They hadn't written a lot of their rules down. Their technobabble is wrong, because it's not what TNG established in Deep Space Nine, and to a lesser extent Voyager went with. How they travel's a bit wrong, and like technically it's all retconned. Like TNG changed this stuff. TOS is, you know, the definitive, the original, but like it's a minority if we limit it to classics, especially between the other 4 or 5 shows, whatever, 4 shows, because I'm lumping TAS in with this, behave like TNG and the rest, mechanically speaking. You know, there are narrative differences between them all, but mechanically, Voyager is the biggest deviation, and even then, that's just because they do some weird things with the existing technobabble. It's, yeah. But it's nice, you know, it's just something about it. The sound effects, you know, the slower style, it's just something about this. It's nice to go and slip back into every now and then. But with that, I do believe we're going to call it a day. Next week, just double checking my calendar, Picard is going to come out on Wednesday, season 3, and we will start doing our reviews. It will not be a watch along, as we did with season 2. because that is a very bad way to watch something for the first time. That was made clear, and I want to just watch the episode, you know? And then immediately after, I'll go on and review it. So we're going to do what we did with Prodigy and Lower Decks with the live streams. And then will probably be another string of episodes, you know, before there's a gap. But then we'll continue our session with Salt Monster. What's it called? The Man Trap? Is it the Man Trap? Hang on. No, the Corbomite Maneuver is the next one. Then was it Mud's Women, Enemy Within, The Man Trap. So yes, the 5th episode of TOS that was produced was the first one that aired. And yeah, Balance of Terror is 8. I think it's like 22 or something when it actually aired, because it was like the most special effects heavy episode. It really had to get pushed back. But yes, thank you for watching.